introduction, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I can remember presenting at the first one 10 years ago when we were developing, just getting ready to develop Mount Marion. And we moved from sort of hard rock extraction into technologies that will enable more battery materials to be made. And we are ready for the revival in the prices. We are listed, so hence the speed reading test. So Neometals is strongly leveraged to the energy storage thematic. What we can see there from the graph on the right is the impact of the transition to net zero by 2050. You can see that lithium and vanadium are the most positively impacted commodities out of a large group. And that is essentially because lithium carries the electrons in the lithium-ion battery, and vanadium carries the electron in different states in the vanadium flow batteries. So what we did, we developed Mount Marion and we did well out of that, but we could see that the world was going to need much more lithium and faster than we could develop it. It's never a straight line. We've had obviously undercapacity and overcapacity. This is my fourth cycle. I've been in lithium since 2009. So looking forward to get out the back end of this one. So what we developed is a technology. Originally we developed it for spodumene so that we could compete against the brine producers in South America. What we actually found is a little bit like what Francis has found, is that if we apply that electrolysis technology, that we can produce lithium from lithium chloride for a fraction of what it costs the hard rock producers. So we've been developing that with MinRes for a number of years. We own that 70%. Then what we had a look at was recycling. We could see, after developing Mount Marion, what was next. We could see cobalt. We couldn't see any good cobalt mines in Australia. And so we had a look at these batteries, and the portable electronic batteries are 20% bio-weight cobalt, right? So we developed a process to recover that, and then we worked out that the portable battery is only growing at GDP, and that all the growth was in the car batteries, which are much more sophisticated and have a more eclectic mix of minerals and materials. So we developed a process to recycle those batteries, and we partnered with a German group, 150-year-old plant builder, to make that a reality. So we worked out that we'd rather develop technologies that will enable more and more lithium to be produced and recycled. And we also developed a process that will produce vanadium at the bottom end of a cost curve out of steel slags. So our management focus has been to commercialise our lithium battery recycling plant. We are currently going through the installation and commissioning of the first integrated recycling plant for a car customer, which is Mercedes-Benz in Germany. Actually, we're not too far from Karlsruhe, where Francis's headquarters are in Germany. We're then looking to secure development partners to move to the demonstration plant phase of our electrolysis technology, ELI. And we're in the financing process for our vanadium project, our first vanadium project in Finland. But like everyone, mother's the necessity of invention. We've had to go back to our original roots and look to start to build out some gold resources that we can quickly turn into cash, because we haven't been able to, the markets for battery materials haven't been great for the last couple of years. So corporate dashboard, you can see, we've sort of tracked. I'll put us against Umicore because they're a cathode producer and recycler in Europe. It hasn't been pleasant, and so hence why we've moved into gold, which is that gold line. We've got a pretty good balance sheet, no debt at the moment, and very supportive shareholders, and we were named one of the most innovative companies in Australia in 2024. So from our battery recycling, we're trying to deal in certainties here. What we're absolutely certain about is that making batteries is hard. There's an inordinate amount of scrap. You can ask any Western or Chinese cell maker. It's a very difficult process. So there's lots of scrap, And we know with absolute certainty that these batteries are designed to wear out. There's planned obsolescence. And so in 2016, there was no one doing it, and so hence why we embarked on our journey, sort of 3 or 4 years of R&D, and the rest has been commercialisation, interrupted a little bit through COVID. And why would you do that? Well, you have a look, I can go out the back of Kalgoorlie, where my family's been for 4 generations, cracking rocks, or you can have a look at these batteries, and a ton of these car batteries is the same as having a ton of ore that's 15% nickel, 15% copper, 2% cobalt, and 2% lithium, right? It's equivalent to multi-ounces of gold, so hence why we'd rather develop a process to recover that. So we developed a process. How we're going to market it is, one, we're going to satisfy the car makers and the cell makers' license to operate. So in Europe, you have the European battery regulations. You have high hurdle rates in terms of what you have to recover. Low cost, so what we've mapped out here is the lithium cost less the nickel and cobalt only that is recovered. So if you recycle your own products, you get it down the bottom end of the cost curve, and we can strip out 85% of the carbon footprint because there's no Australian spodumene, there's no Indonesian nickel, there's no DRC cobalt, so that's all good. So we developed that process, but how do we commercialise it, right? We're in Australia, we have no critical mass. So we worked out that the Europeans were a number of years ahead of the Americans, obviously making very high value cars, great support across the European Union for that thematic, and hence why we developed a partnership with SMS Group. So we're actually not only going to license the technology, we're going to build the plants. And so that's what we're doing with Mercedes-Benz at the moment. So we had the German Chancellor, the former German Chancellor, open the plant in October. So what you can see, the top image there is the shredding and beneficiation, where we physically separate out the materials. The bottom is part of the solvent extraction, where we take out the lithium, the nickel and the cobalt for reuse. So we're the first recycler to have a formal agreement with the car maker. That plant, we're going through the installation and commissioning this year. Essentially, that will serve as the de-risking for us at about 2,500 tonnes per annum to then move to our commercial sort of 20,000 tonne plant and beyond. So that's capturing the stuff at the end, but we still need a massive amount of lithium. So what we've got on the right-hand side is, what's going to happen to demand for lithium driven by electromobility, stationary storage. I think that, I actually prefer the CRU information I saw there. Stationary storage is growing faster than anyone thought. And the reason is because the prices have come down. You can get a full battery-ready plug-in lithium-ion storage for your solar at less than $100 a kilowatt hour. In 2015, when we developed Mount Marion, it was about $750 a kilowatt hour, right? So what that means is that solar and lithium batteries are now cheaper than coal in India. They'll be cheaper than cheaper than natural gas-fired in the US next year, and cheaper than Chinese coal in 2027. We're just seeing an exponential jump, and they will be a massive driver of long-term demand for lithium going forward. So our process, we can take either a salar concentrate from a brine deposit or a well brine like Francis has, and essentially, or we can take spodumene. But here I've sort of limited it to the brines, and so what we do is we purify and then we use electricity, a traditional chlor-alkali cell like they have down at Coogee Chemical. They split sodium chloride into sodium hydroxide and chlorine. We would make lithium hydroxide and chlorine from our process. The beauty is that we can convert lithium chloride into lithium hydroxide for less than half the traditional cost. We don't have to use expensive imported reagents, and we can utilise green renewable power. So it's all round the perfect complement to DLE. DLE is half the story. Fortunately for Francis, he's got both. And so, you know, taking it out efficiently and quickly, because the salar process can take 18 months. It's not a straight line to concentrate. DLE is much quicker, much higher recoveries, and using electrolysis, you produce a very, very high quality product. So, you know, we ran a 2-year pilot plant, purification followed by electrolysis on an actual salar brine, you know, from South America, and we've tested every major salar, operating salar in the world. And so, one, we do a fantastic job of purification using our patented process, and two, it's funny, it's one of those processes, if you want cheaper costs, you actually have to make a purer product to start off with to reduce the amount of electricity, so you get a fantastic product out the back end. The third bit we've got in the portfolio is vanadium recovery, and really driven by these vanadium redox batteries. And we actually have a vanadium project in Australia, but look, it's pretty difficult. And so we developed a process to recover vanadium from steel slags that are the highest grade vanadium in the world. And so when we have a look at vanadium demand, the forecast is massive. It sort of looks like lithium in about 2013, right? You know it's coming because the Chinese are building the battery plants, and capacity is just, it's growing every year, both in terms of electrolyte and the batteries. The immediate problem is the fact that steel demand in China is off, and hence the vanadium, because 80% at the moment is used by steel makers. So what we did is we developed a process that will recover this vanadium from steel slags. The Swedish steels, the Swedish iron ores have a lot of vanadium in them, and the process generates a slag. We look at a V2O5 equivalent of just under 4% in terms of the reference price that we would buy the material at. So we ran a pilot, well, we did a scoping study, pre-feasibility, we ran a full pilot and DFS. We've got all of our approvals, we've got our offtake sorted out, and we're in the financing process for what will be Europe's first domestic vanadium producer, and it'll be it has the ability to produce at a zero carbon footprint. So we've got one of Finland's most experienced CEOs. She's been working with us for the last couple of years, assisted by Darren Townsend, our COO. We have cornerstone debt being provided by the European Investment Bank. Actually, the debt's, the commercial debt is going to be guaranteed 80% by the Finnish government. So it'll actually be cheaper than the EIB debt, and we're just going through the equity raising process for that project at a project level. It hasn't been super easy in the current market, but we are getting increasing tractions, which is good. So in terms of what we're going to do going forward, it's all about getting the plant for Mercedes-Benz, finishing off the install and successfully commissioned before looking at the larger scale plants, securing that partner for Eli and moving into the industrial validation stage, so essentially acquiring a Mercedes-Benz but for Eli, rounding out the vanadium project financing hopefully next quarter, defining gold resources. We've got a pretty good gold exploration target up at Barrambie. It was a very high-grade historic gold producer. We've got a number of mines there, so we're just going around trying to take the low-hanging fruit so that we could develop a couple of open pits and send it up to Meekatharra. And then looking at divesting our vanadium titanium resource. A strong team and culture, right values, and you can come and read the presentation a bit later. But thank you very much for your attention.